This is Operation B, the podcast about living with intention, building what feels true, and dropping the things that don't. A place where purpose meets practice. I'm Jamie Thurber, your host, and together we'll explore how to live with clarity, freedom, and alignment without burning out or losing yourself, because it's time to be who you're meant to be. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Operation B. I'm your host, Jamie Thurber. Thanks for being here today. And today we're going to talk about something that has popped into my head many times over I don't even know what length of time. But there's a reason, I feel like. When stuff pops into our head regularly, I often believe that it does so because we need to talk about it or look into it or feel into it or whatever thing is, right? So this has popped in. I'm not saying it does it all the time, but it has periodically. I've thought of this where I'm like, how fucked up is this? So let me tell you the story. So there's a guy that I've known since I was like 12, right? And I'm about to be 38. So a long ass time. And you change a lot, right? In that time frame. But anyway, I've known him all those years and we've always stayed in touch and on and off and whatever. Anyway, did I date him at some point? Yes. Is he still like a friend of the family? Yes. So anyway, one time many years ago, I remember we were like talking about something and he took it to like a weird place. And I was like, okay, well, that's not, I like shut her down, you know? And he like got really snippy and pissy. And anyways, one of the things that he said in like his little barking conversation to me was people that I used to date really love to say stupid shit about me and Tony's relationship. They have from the beginning. People always, just across the board. My abusive ex-boyfriend one time decided to call me and tell me, are you really dating him? Like, I know you want to get married and have kids, Jamie. Like, I know that about you. And I was like, I haven't talked to you in like, at the time, I think it had been like 7 years or something. And I'm like, what in the But that's what controlling men do. They think that they can continuously pop back into your life, periodically and control you or tell you like they think they, know you, whatever. Anyway, so this guy says this to me. He like was smarting off about something and was like, whatever, you only stay with Tony for security. It's fucking stupid. And I was like, huh? And I remember when that happened, I just immediately was like, and I have no room for you in my life anymore. Like, nope. It was petty. It was uncalled for. It was just ugh to me, right? And I thought about that after the fact, and I laughed to myself because I was like, wait a minute. It takes a real fuckboy to think that a woman being in a relationship that has security and looks at security with her partner as a positive thing is like bad of her. I'm like, we're not 16. We're grown adults. Like, security and being able to rely on someone and know that they're stable and know that they're available and know what you're getting is amazing. We should all want that. We should all be like, yes, I want the relationship with the guy that I feel secure with. So fuck yeah. Mister, I'm not going to say your name. I almost did. I'm part of the reason that my relationship is so stellar and I'm happy and I'm staying in it is because I do have security. Not the kind of security that you may be thinking about, though. People automatically assume that because Tony played professional hockey, that he's got tons of money and he must just pay for my entire lifestyle. Not true, friends. So that's not even the point of what I want to talk about, though. I want to talk about this false narrative issue that we have in the world, where I was talking to one of my clients the other day when she was talking about how we're brainwashed as women from a young age, from society, from TV, from movies, from magazines, from love songs, to think that we're supposed to have this like be-all end-all rush in and the whole world changes love affair. And if it's not like that, like, basically our whole purpose in life is to fall in love. And it's like, no. I'm so glad that I was able to figure that out. I mean, I come from a household of people who did have like a young love turn into a lifelong love, and they, are still married and like each other and all those things. But I was still able at a young age to figure out the truth versus the bullshit, right? In relationships, and what I wanted my life to look like, and how that was. Now, I'm definitely a relationship kind of gal. Like, anybody who's known me for a long time knows that. I'm not like a casual dater by any means. I never really have been. And so whatever, it's just a part of who I am. But I just thought it was so funny that this dude who thought he was like digging at me about something said, you stay with him because of the security. And I was like, well, that's not the only reason, but it sure is a reason. Like, why duh, we grown women, grown ass mature women who have their own shit going on and are stable individuals and are looking for someone to do life with in a healthy manner, are going to see stability in another human as a gigantic bonus. Like, hell yes, please. That is something on the list that you need to add, ladies, if you don't have it there. So it led me to think a little bit more about this. It popped in my head again randomly the other day. I don't know if a song came on the radio, like made me think of like that time in my life or what. Anyway, I'm very like introspective, thoughtful creature, so I can't help it. Things just pop into my head like that. Anyway, so I looked up the definition of security. This is where it gets really good. And then I was like, oh, I got to totally record a podcast about this because more people need to have this conversation. So, security, freedom from a potential harm from external forces. A positive thing, I'd say, yeah. Security, protection from hostile harm, presence of an essential good, a resilience against damage or harm as a state of mind. Security is all of those things. Hi, yeah, please sign me up for freedom from potential harm from external forces. Sign me up for protection from hostile harm. Please sign me up for the presence of an essential good as resilience against damage or harm as a state of mind. Yes, sign me up. Was there a time in my life where I wanted crazy, and I said I didn't want it, but that's what was happening, right? That's the lifestyle and the partners I was choosing stuff. Yeah, hell yeah, I was young. That's what we did, right? But like stability in another human, it's like it goes so deep, okay? We have emotional stability, we have mental stability, we have physical stability, we have foundation building, we have like all of this security. Well, I meant to say emotional security, emotional or mental security, physical security, foundational security, and stability is what I meant to say. But like freedom and security go hand in hand in a non-codependent, healthy relationship. How do I know this? Because I've built it. I remember the first time I was ever introduced to the term codependent, and I looked around, and nobody fucking get mad at me about this, but I looked around and I could not see one anywhere. I love my parents. They have a good marriage, but they are wildly codependent on each other. And now that they're both retired, it causes problems sometimes, right? Like it makes things a little more challenging. Codependency to some extent always will happen when you share life together, but I think being focused on not being codependent on one another, instead, like the things you depend on the other person for is a choice, a conscious, independent choice, is a very different thing. And so I remember looking around and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to pay attention because I'm not sure if I know anyone who doesn't have a codependent relationship, where they're both two equal parties coming together to form something great. Now then I started thinking deeper, and that's not true. I do have a few examples, one being my brother and his wife, the other being our friends Scott and Sharon, and I think Pat and Lisa would probably fall under that category. And like there's different people as the more I looked a little bit deeper, but it is not the majority, my friend. It is not the majority. It is the exception to the rule, and I wish people would talk about this more, because being codependent, meaning you can't function without the other person. Now it doesn't mean you want to function without them, but you can. As individual creatures, you can exist fully without that person. But what happens, what is required for that to exist is you have to know you as a person first. You have to be whole all by yourself before you enter into said partnership with other person. Now, when we would enter into, and I did this a lot, you'd enter into a partnership with someone that you thought or you wanted them to be secure. You wanted deeply to believe that they were this secure creature and that they were this very independent being. It's very easy to fake that for 90 days. 90 days, 6 months maximum, will a partner fake their independence, fake their everything, really. So you got to give it a little more time. And I know this from experience and from watching and being involved in so many people's lives. So people can only fake it for so long. And the words of the great Tony Twist, imposters are always revealed, my friend. So he told me that a long time ago, and sometimes waiting for it to happen is really difficult, but it always does. And so anyway, when you're a whole independent creature all by yourself, then you can enter into a healthy relationship where you don't need that person, you want them. And then if you're not careful, it can twist around to being that you need them. Tony is literally my walking, breathing security blanket. When I'm having an anxiety attack, he can come and call me almost immediately. Do I have to have him? No. Can I function without him? Absolutely. Do I need him when I'm having a panic attack? No. I mean, I can deal with it. It's just, I know the tools at my disposal and I choose to use them. Just like sometimes if he can't help me, Catherine can, because she's a magic witch and she lives in a stupid Texas, which is annoying, but she can touch me from there and help me calm down. But that's a tool in my toolbox. I can survive without her, but I'm smart enough to know that tapping into my tools makes sense, right? Okay, so why would we not do that? But when we're looking at freedom and security, freedom in a relationship, it's really funny when people will say things like, well, I got to talk to Tony, right, and make sure it's okay. And I'm like, okay, for what? Like guys I do business with often, like, well, I don't want Tony to think. And I'm like, let me tell you something. Tony ain't thinking fucking twice about you. Trust me. And anybody who knows him or knows our relationship knows that that's true. He's not worrying about it. He is not thinking about it. Because I'm so hyper aware of my own ways of being treated by other people, and he trusts that, right? Now, he is not that aware. He tends to think he's just being nice, and it's turned into problems many times in the past. So he has learned the hard way that he's not always great at recognizing someone's intentions, believe it or not. And so he comes to me and will say, so this happened. I don't think that was okay. And I'm like, no, it was not okay. So do I believe that because he does that, do I worry about what he's doing? No. When he wasn't doing that, sometimes, yeah. And not because I thought he was like cheating on me or doing anything stupid, just because then I was going to have to freaking deal with it later. And I don't like to watch people that I love get taken advantage of. Not fun. Anyway, so when you're looking at things like freedom and security, what categories fall underneath of those things? Things like trust. Things like an emotional state. A secure emotional state. Wow, if that's something I know I can count on from you, massive. As a partner especially, let alone as a person that I want to have anywhere near me. Communication, assurance versus openness, that comes from a security basis. Reliability comes from a security basis. Like, there was a time where Tony was not the most reliable creature. He'd be 2 hours late for everything, and it would piss me off. And I finally explained it to him in a way that he understood that it was disrespectful to me and my time and what I have to get done in my life and my business for him to not be on time and not communicate that. He doesn't do that anymore. Again, people used to say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Yeah, you fucking can. If that dog gives a shit. If that dog gives a shit and wants to change, he will. Now, granted, I never refer to Tony as a dog. Maybe like a Neanderthal or like Bigfoot. If you've been to my house, we have a giant Bigfoot statue in the front yard. Anyway, so yes, people can make changes if they want to. And you communicate with them Again, tale as old as time. Everybody wants to complain about how their partner doesn't provide them what they need, but yet they don't tell their partner what they're wanting. No one can read your mind. You have to speak out loud to them in order for them. And that goes for every relationship in your life. If you don't feel like you're getting what you need or want from the person, you better verbalize clearly what it is that you expect. Because then they can make the decision whether they're going to do that thing or not. But until you tell them, you can't be mad when you don't get it. So anyway, back to security. Reliability, we just talked about. Independence. So independence and freedom come from being secure in not only who you are, but in who your person is and in who your relationship is. That matters. It matters. I just love this. Security is freedom from potential harm from external forces. And I think, wow, you tried to spin this to me like it was a bad thing? Okay. Why? Because homie doesn't have it in him. He doesn't have a stable bone in his damn body. And that's just the truth. That's not me talking shit. If the people who are listening that know who I'm talking about, they will agree with me. I wish he did because I love him to pieces. I still wish him nothing but the best. Like, I think he has a great heart and it makes me sad. But, like, this is what we do, right? We get nasty about things that we aren't instead of working on ourselves to improve those things that are actually really beautiful traits to have. So if you notice, I didn't mention a damn thing about financial security in the last, 16 minutes of rambling, because it was never part of it. But in a world where money makes the world go round and is part of our everyday life, does it help lessen stress? Sometimes, yes, it sure does. Can it also create plenty of its own stress? Yes. I've taken many, many classes on how to manage money because I didn't ever have any. I was never taught that. My mom and dad were never taught how to manage money, so they couldn't teach my brother and I. We went out on our own and figured out how to create different relationships with money. Jesse went down his own path. He did a lot of Dave Ramsey stuff. I did a lot of various books, Tony Robbins, all those kinds of things. I did a lot of work with Amanda Francis classes and things because she has built a very powerful, very wealthy brand. Her and Melanie Layer, same thing. So anyway, in those classes, though, we talk about the fact that we have to approach money differently and how, yes, it can create ease, but it also comes with necessary knowledge and attention and responsibility. And if you've not taken the time to slow your life down and create a foundation that freaking functions and is reliable, let's go back to our list. Reliable is assurance, is trustworthy, is stable, is freedom, is security. Like, if you haven't worked on that thing in yourself, then having more money is not going to make you feel more secure. It just creates more work and more problem for you. Or it's there and then it's gone in a snap of a finger is usually what happens with people. So Tony knows way more about investing and how that all works, okay? I don't know the terminology. I mean, I know enough to not be dumb with my own money, but it was something I was talking to my parents about yesterday. I was over their house because they were meeting with someone, and they used my financial advisor, who's my very good friend Jordan, and I got them hooked up with him when my mom was retiring and blah, blah, blah. And I learned a lot during that time. But I had told my mom, I was like, you know that I told Tony, most couples get together, get married, and then they learn about financial security and financial growth and investments and financial planning and all of that shit. They learn it together as they get into the positions to actually have any money to do anything with that about. They learn it together, and after marriage, a lot of people do, right? At least in the Midwest and what I've witnessed. And in Tony and I's relationship, he already had all that stuff established. I wasn't aware of it. I mean, I figured he did, but I didn't ask. We never even talked about it after. It was 13 years later, we finally discussed it because he's like, you should probably know what's going on. And I was like, Yeah, okay. Because we live in a world where we have split expenses and we keep our money separate. Um, Sometimes he's like, hey, do you have any cash? Sometimes I'm like, hey, do you have any cash? Right? Like we keep our money separate and it works for us. I like it that way. We have recently started like putting a fund together and things like that. But like, anyway, my whole point is that I realized, shit, I need to start doing my own education because he already had that stuff put together. So in a place where most couples learn that together, I was going to be missing out on that. And I needed to learn more for myself. It's important to me that I understand things like that. And what that does, not only does it make me a better adult human for myself, but it also makes me a better coach and guide for my clients and gives me opportunity to make my money turn into more money, right? And that's what we do. So we try to have, retirement money and all that shit. Anyway, so my whole point of that is that I spoke quite a bit about security and stability and what it means to a person and how it's something that we should all look for and strive for and not settle for less than. And if we aren't those things, then we should work on creating them for ourselves so that we can go into a relationship as a healthy individual that's secure, right? That somebody can trust you. They can trust your emotional state. They can trust your mental state. They can trust that you're physically going to be there or show up or blah, blah, right? So, yes, I had all of those things to say prior to mentioning a damn thing about money, about financial security. The thing is that, yes, I have my own companies. I make my own money. It's always been that way. But why would I want to pair with someone who was not stable in those places? Does that mean that if I was head over heels in love with someone and they were amazing in every other way and stable in every other way, that I wouldn't want to do life with them because they weren't financially stable? No. Obviously, again, those of you who've known me for a long time, and that's obviously not a thing for me. But if I was given in a situation where I'm like, I love this person and they have every single form of stability for themselves, and I'm not worried about how he's paying his bill and how like his truck payments getting handled or whatever. Yeah, it's a nice thing. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And for someone to think they're going to like rip me apart because saying that is weird. But like why would you not want to pair with someone and share with someone, who's also stable in those ways? I mean, we do. Why would we not? We should. We should want that. And I think that the world tells us that we shouldn't say those things out loud because it makes us sound shallow or it makes us sound blah, blah, blah. Well, there's plenty of things that are shallow, okay? And what we're talking about right here is not. These are things called, I am going to not settle for something that's going to harm me. Back to the definition, freedom from potential harm from external forces. At the end of the day, friend, you've got to take care of you. You've got to take care of you. You do. It's just the way it is. Operation B would not exist if I did not believe that at the end of the day, your well-being is your responsibility. No one else's. We have abundant amount of resources at our fingertips these days. So if we are not able to find the resources, keep looking because there's somewhere. There's something somewhere that can help, at least a little bit, maybe with your mindset, maybe with your, you know what I mean? There's plenty of information. So I think that if our focus is always on being the best version of ourselves, and that's how we show up it's how we show up. And that doesn't mean we're perfect. That doesn't mean everything's amazing all day long because that's not called humanity. Like we're human. I'm a big fan of humanness. You know this. Big fan of giving ourselves grace for the human experience. I saw this meme earlier that said, I went to the doctor and they asked, so have you been any more stressed lately? And the response was, do you live on planet Earth? Like, hello. And I started laughing. I'm like, great point, actually. So we just need to give ourselves grace where it's necessary and know that focusing on building you first always is the place to start because you're no good to anyone else if you're not okay. you're not going to be able to have a solid relationship if you're not okay. And if you're in a relationship and you have a season where you don't feel okay, communicate that, share about that, ask for what you need, continue to work on yourself. Don't box your partner out. Like, that's not stable. That's not being a team player. That's not supportive. And, work on those things. But at the end of the day, your wellness is your responsibility. So I hope you guys liked that message. I feel like it was something that had been brewing inside of me that needed to come out for a while, or it wouldn't have popped up in my head again like years and years later. So if you enjoyed this conversation, as always, please let us know. Like, it's something that really helps as I'm creating for you and for whatever's popping up inside of me that needs to come out. It helps with that. So as always, wherever you're listening, please make sure that you're subscribed, that you hit the like button, that you leave a review if you have not done so already. And if you think anyone else that you know could benefit from this message, please hit that share button and share this with them. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, see ya. Thank you for listening to Operation B, the podcast. To support this message and to support the show, please make sure that you like, follow, and share wherever you enjoy listening. And be sure to leave us a review on iTunes. That's the way to support this message. Thank you for being here, and see you next time.